Good morning. Today I'm going to talk to you about Investigation 3 from Mrs. Schmiel. We are talking about slope and we are talking about graphing. And I think once you see me go over this, it's going to make a lot more sense to you. So at the beginning of the investigation, there was some text and there was a video from Mrs. Schmiel to help you understand. And then you saw all of these graphs. And this is what the first graph looked like. And number 1 says y equals 2x plus 3. And then we see that we have a value of x right here. And then we can see that Mrs. Schmiel substituted it in right there in order to get her coordinates. So basically all you're doing is taking the value of x, which is given to you in this column, and you're substituting it into the equation right here. So whatever x equals, you put right there. And then you solve it, and then you get what your y is. And then you're going to write your coordinates here. So for this one right here, it already told us that x equals -1. And remember, these coordinates are x, y. So x goes first. We know that x equals -1. So now we just go y equals 2 times -1 plus 3. 2 times -1 is -2. -2 plus 3 equals 1. So that means the coordinates are -1, 1. That is all I'm going to do. Now I'm going to put 0 in instead of a -1. Two times 0 is 0. Plus 3 equals 3. 0, I got that from here. 3, got that from here. So as you can see, it's basically just simple substitution. You do have to know your integer rules with negatives and positives, but for the most part, it's just putting your x into the equation where it needs to go, and then getting your points. Let's do the next one. Y equals -2x plus 3. Filling those in ahead of time to make this easy on myself. -2 times -2, because that's what x is, and x is here. -2 times -2 is 4, plus 3, which equals 7. This one's done for us. -2, x is 0 in this case. Oops, plus 3. I'm going to give myself a little space here. Remember, my x values are here, and those get put in right here, where the x is, each time. All right, this has a fraction in it, but just remember, when you multiply times 1/2, that is the same as dividing by 2. So don't get caught up on that. Remember, x, y, so my x's are right there, and my x's are all right here. Let's substitute it in. So think 1/2 of -2. You know what that is. That's -1. Oh, this is nice and easy. Because anything times 0 is 0. And 0 minus 3 is -3. What is 1/2 of 2? 1. 1 minus 3 is -2. Remember, if I have $1 and I borrow 2 more, I would be 2 in debt. What is 1/2 of 4? 2. 2 minus 3. 2 is smaller than 3. So my answer is negative. Okay. We have a fraction again, but remember, multiplying times a -1/2. Same thing, you're just splitting the number in half, and then following your algebra rules. So, our x values are here. Our x values are here. Y equals negative 1/2 of -2 minus 3. Negative times a negative is a positive, right? So 1/2 of 2 is 1 minus 3, -2. Negative 1/2 of 0. Anything times 0 is 0. 0 minus 3 is -3. You can't really take from 0 unless we go negative. Negative 1/2 of 2 is -1. -1 minus 3 is -4. And finally, y equals negative 1/2 of 4 minus 3. You're going to take half of 4 and it's going to stay negative because of this negative sign. -2 minus 3 equals -5. So we have these charts here that we made. You know, we have all these coordinates. And when you go to graph these, you can just graph those numbers that you got. Graph that, graph that, graph that. As long as you have 3 points, you'll get a line. There is another way to graph, though, if you don't have this chart in front of you. And basically what you do is you're starting with this number. So that's called my y-intercept, all right? You're going to hear about that a lot. And I think in the next part of this investigation, it's what you're going to be working on. I like graphing with the y-intercept. I think it makes things pretty easy. When you have a y-intercept like that, all that means is your first point can go on the y-axis, which is this axis, at that number. So if I have +3, I can just go up to 3 on the y-axis, and that's my first point. Now my slope is 2, right? Which is the same as 2 over 1. And that's my rise, and that's my run. So all I'm going to do, since it's positive, so I want it going that way, I'm going to go up 2 over 1. Just make those nice and clear for you. I'm going to go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. And then I've got my first line. Again, you can just go back and look at the points and plot those. But if you get how to do this, you can do that. So again, I have a negative 2x plus 3. I start at +3. Now it's negative. So that means I go down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. I can also go in this direction. And then I have my second line. Now this one starts at -3. So all I'm going to do on the y-axis, go to -3. And the slope is 1/2. So that is up 1 over 2. Up 1 over 2. I can also go down 1, left 2. and that's positive. Now finally, we have this. Also starts at -3 on the y-intercept, but then it's a negative slope. So I'm going to go down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2, go up 1 over 2. Now, if you don't like graphing with the y-intercept, you are welcome to go look at those points and graph it that way instead. I personally just think this way is a little easier, but I will also admit that it makes sense to me. And if something doesn't make sense to you, it might not work for you. So if the other way works better for you, by all means, do it the way you like. Okay, let's look at 5, 6, 7, and 8. These are all done the same way. I am going to try to go through these quickly so you have them as a reference. So I'm just substituting. I have my x's here. -2. Remember, this is just matching up here. -1, 1, 2. And now I'm substituting. Five times -2 is -10. Plus 1 is -9. Five times -1 is -5. Plus 1, it gets a little less negative, becomes -4. Five times 1 is 5. Plus 1 equals 6. And finally, 5 times 2 is 10. Plus 1 equals 11. All right, we've got some more. This has a negative in front of the x. Just remember your algebra rules. I'm going to go ahead and fill this in. Just helps keep you organized. You know your x's are in the right spot then. So let's see. Y equals -5 times -2 plus 1. Negative and a negative is a positive. So that's 10 plus 1, which equals 11. -5 times 0 is 0. Plus 1 equals 1. -5 times 1 is -5. Plus 1, paying back a little debt, only -4 now. And then finally, -5 times 2 is -10. Plus 1 is -9, paid $1 back. That is number 6. Here we have number 7. One-fifth. That is the same as dividing by 5. So do not get yourself caught up on that, okay? We have our x's given to us. And Mrs. Schmiel used numbers that are very compatible with 5. So let's see. Y equals 1/5 of x, which is -5, minus 1. So 1/5 of -5, you just divide -5 times 5. You get -1. -1 minus 1 is -2. I love zeros because 1/5 of 0 is 0. 0 minus 1 is -1. Multiplying by zeros is so easy. So 1/5 of 5, we did it here, we knew it was -1. That makes this +1. And a +1 minus 1 is 0. And finally, 1/5 of 10. So what's 10 divided by 5? 2. And 2 minus 1 is 1. Last one. Let's go fill in our x's. Remember, I got those right here. And those are going to go right here to solve the equation. So, y equals negative 1/5 times negative 10 minus 1. So, first we're going to do 1/5 of 10, or 1/5 of negative 10, so that's the same as dividing 10 by 5. It's going to be positive 2 because they're both negative. It makes it a positive. And 2 minus 1 is 1. Negative 1/5 of 0 minus 1. Anything times 0 is 0. And 0 minus 1 would be negative 1. Divide 5 by 5. You get 1. Since there's a negative in there, it becomes a negative 1. Minus 1 becomes a negative 2. And finally, 1/5 of 10 minus 1. Again, you do 10 divided by 5, which is 2, but since there's a negative, it's negative 2 minus 1, and you get negative 3. That will get you through 1 through 8. It would be great if you could try to graph on your own 5, 6, 7, and 8. There is graph paper available through Mrs. Shmiel. I did send home some to some people. Try doing it the same way that I graph numbers 1 through 4. But this should help you get started. And then we'll go over the second part of the investigation, hopefully by tomorrow. All right. Good luck, everybody.